What's up, guys? This is Ray. So today's the 22nd of March, 2017. I know this is long overdue, or I guess in my opinion, it's long overdue. Now, my friend Alan could quit messaging me for a minute. But obviously Lilith went into Sagittarius already, and I went over the rundown of what Lilith represents in Sagittarius, and I've obviously been elaborating on it in transit discussions, but I have yet to go over how Lilith will affect each house individually for... God damn it, Alan. You're killing me here. Oh my god. Okay, stop. You're done. So I'm going to go over how Lilith and Sagittarius will be influencing through the houses. So again, you can go to my transit and horoscope section on my YouTube channel, and you can listen to my Lilith and Sagittarius video that I go into specifics about the symbology with Lilith, Black Moon Lilith and Sagittarius. And when I say Lilith, I do mean Black Moon Lilith. There is a couple of different asteroid points with Lilith, like the true Lilith and the White Moon Lilith. I don't understand what the hell that's about. I've read the mythology with Lilith, the archetype of Lilith, and what she represents, in folklore, and I use the Black Moon Lilith. To be honest, when I initially was, kind of looking into it, I had the option of choosing, the true Lilith, and then I saw the White Lilith, and then the Black Moon Lilith, and just because of my associations with Carl Jung and the shadow self, and it having some sort of facet with the ego, which is the moon, I instantly just translated the shadow kind of thing with the anima and animus projection theory that he talks about with black. And then I saw the Black Moon Lilith, and I kind of plugged in that asteroid point with associations with what Carl Jung was kind of referencing, and which is a totally different kind of thing, but I saw a similarity and I went with it, and it works with my interpretations, so that's why I stick with that. If you use true Lilith, or you use the White Lilith or whatever, or you want information on that, you're SOL. I don't know anything about that, and I don't even necessarily see the relevance in it. Okay, so anyway, when Black Moon Lilith is in Sagittarius, it's obviously not only a mutable sign, but it's associated with Jupiter, and the equivalent of that would be Pisces. So that could be over-exaggerated, overwhelming, and it could have something to do with infectious or uncontainable, intangible, that sort of thing. And it would be mainly focused on the Jupiter associations. So although it can attribute to some of the Neptune associations, we're going to stick to mainly what is associated with Jupiter. So Jupiter affects influences the 9th house. So that's one of the facets of the mind, the mutable crux that I talk about, that controls someone's ideations, perspective, perception, and their ideation, their thoughts. And what thoughts turn into motives, and motives turn into behavior. It kind of governs everything that has to do with the living conscious person, that at least has, so Jupiter itself is supposed to represent a lot of the beliefs, the opinions, the ideation, and it does almost seem like it's the it's part of the superego for sure, because the superego is supposed to be associated with Mercury. Mercury is the rational, logical thing. So Jupiter plays a part in people who rationalize, unjustifiable behavior, or rationalize, negative behavior, or them indulging or being impulsive and being reckless. Someone who could rationalize their behavior would be able to use Lilith and Sagittarius specifically to basically make themselves believe whatever they did is justifiable. For example, I always think of Ted Bundy all the time when I think of Lilith and Sagittarius, because not only are mutable signs known for psychotic, psychopathy, sociopathy, antisocial personality disorder, and are the required like elemental balance, or the, you know, the mode of balance in astrology for serial killers, but Ted Bundy specifically was a Sagittarius. So it's kind of just referencing my board here. So I just wrote down some keywords that are associated with Black Moon, Lilith, and Sagittarius. So Lilith in Black Moon, Lilith, and Sagittarius would be impulsive, conflicting, exaggerated, destructive, vindictive, escapism, or an escapist, somebody who is trying to run away from their problems or the consequences of their impulsive, destructive behavior, and lack of accountability first and foremost. Sagittarius, all the shadow sides of Sagittarius would essentially come out in this in the worst way. So Sagittarius is usually are tactless, usually will instigate things for very childish reasons, or for sometimes for even just fun, or the heck of just stirring up some shit. They're very good at that. They also are the types that are these not pseudo-intellectuals, but they like to press upon people their beliefs, their ideations, even sometimes their logical superego justifications for their moral high grounds and like their choices. So that's also obviously a facet with that. And so for the first house, you just apply those kinds of themes to that. So when I'm talking about the houses, this is in particular when you're looking at your natal chart. So if you have essentially Sagittarius ruling over your first house, you're going to be having Black Moon, Lilith in your first house. So these keywords will apply to the first house, the self. So this would be the self, the life, your behavior would be impulsive, conflicting, exaggerated, destructive, and vindictive. The self, as an individual, would be more of a lack of accountability or escapism or denial with some of the things that they've been contributing to. Then we go into the second house, being destructive, vindictive, impulsive, or conflicting with relationships, your own self-worth, self-values, and your own individual resources. So you might be squandering resources of your own. You might be intentionally sabotaging or engaging in vindictive, malicious behavior towards people that are close to you in your life, or be intentionally trying to be an escape, enable some sort of escapism by withdrawing from people. Then the third house is associated with communications, thoughts, transportation, and immediate environment. So that has to do obviously with mercurial facets as well as Gemini. So you could essentially be conflicting. You could have conflicting thoughts. So this could be one of the triggers that you have a personality conflict or cognitive dissonance. You could be causing conflict with people in your immediate area, so your neighbors, your home life, your siblings. You could be destructive or lack of accountability or impulsive with your car, your automobile, with transportation, with commuting. People who would likely be directly involved with some sort of reckless driving or something like that may have Lilith, Black Moon Lilith in the third house. And then an emphasis again, because it's the polarity of the ninth house, which is the Jupiter house. If Lilith is in the third house, the sixth house, the ninth house, or the 12th house, that is the key signature for somebody experiencing mental disturbances or mental instability, especially since we're still going through these mutable years, and this is just going to make those instability kind of themes even worse. And with the Uranus, Pluto, Jupiter T-square, that's definitely testing people's emotional stability in general. So then the fourth house would have to do with home, family, early life associations, so therapeutic facets. If there's things that you're aware of that are kind of acting as stumbling blocks in your life because of early developmental phases that were traumatizing for you, some people specifically, like if you reference like the intervention shows, they usually self-medicate with drugs or something like that to escape some sort of experiences or associations with their early home life that was traumatizing. So I'm not saying that Black Moon Lilith and Sagittarius would be directly associated with drugs. It does have that mild, that related association with Pisces, which Pisces and Neptune is associated with drugs. But the antisocial kind of escapism facet could actually manifest as drug use. But this would be more that you're causing conflict or being vindictive towards your family or your home, and there could be a lack of accountability with your behavior at home, or a lack of accountability with your obligations and responsibility within the home. You could also be, again, escapism or being self-destructive towards your own foundation and your own therapeutic facets because of things that you're unwilling to address and acknowledge. Then we look at the 5th house. So impulsive, conflicting, or destructive, or vindictive with your romantic affairs or romantic, associations. Specifically right now, too, with us being in Aries season, with Venus retrograde in Aries, as well as it being opposition with Jupiter, this is going to intensify, and also because right now, actually, there's going to be some trines to the Sun, to Venus, as well as Pallas, actually, and that's a facet of not only Libra, but it's associated with Jupiter as well. That will have some sort of effects on that too. So Lilith and Sagittarius also in the 5th house would associate with children as well, or creative projects, or some of your goals or intentions, or your personal the things that you aspire to do that are either projects or hobbies that are attributed to your personal expression. You could be sabotaging those as of this with this influence going on right then. I would assume that most of this would actually apply more to romance and your romantic partners and your children, which is very unfortunate. So that's something that you should definitely keep in mind. Then we go into the 6th house. This is probably another one of the, this is obviously one of the concerning ones that has to do with mental stability. So the 6th house not only is part of the, the mental crux or the, mental ideation, but it's the Virgo house, so it's discernment, it's deciding what is not good to do. So that's definitely bad to be having this here, because impulsive or destructive or tactless is definitely not going to be helping with the, discerning factor. Also that, and taking into account that the 6th house is associated not only with day-to-day habitual behavior, but habits, but it has to do with behavior in particular. So Lilith and Sagittarius being in the 6th house right now would probably be one of the most obvious influences of antisocial or psychopathic behavior. So being destructive, reckless, vindictive, malicious, violent. So the things that you're seeing with like random people just committing acts of violence or whatever, or just snapping and doing something completely off the wall that's destructive to themselves or other people, not only is there a good chance, and I would even almost bet money on it, that Lilith and Sagittarius is directly affecting one of the, mental houses, which is the 3rd, 6th, 9th, and 12th. But more often than not, I would actually assume that there's going to be quite a few examples that Lilith is particularly in the 6th house. Not only because of it being one of the mutable houses as well, but we have the North Node in Virgo right now as well. So basically what that signifies is that when we had the eclipses, the lunar eclipse and the solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse both conjuncted each opposing node. And then Lilith and Sagittarius basically started squaring both nodes simultaneously as it went from Scorpio to Sagittarius. So Lilith and Sagittarius has had a direct influence with Virgo associations and Pisces associations, in fact, as well, which again is re-emphasized with the instability and negatively impacting the mental stability of people. Then the 7th house would be of others, marriage, partnerships, and legal agreements. So you could be causing some sort of, you could be having some sort of lack of accountability with legal contracts. You might actually end up being a defendant in some cases, because of your lack of accountability or being able to compromise with people. You would, a lot of people, especially as Pluto has been squaring Venus, when every time that Venus is in a cardinal sign, people's relationships have been going awry. And also too, the Uranus-Pluto square has been affecting people's, mental stabilities and their capacity to stay together and be strong. Now that we add Jupiter into that mix, not only Jupiter as being a magnifying thing, but it being in the sign of Libra that is associated with relationships in the 7th house, a lot of people are going to actually be separating and going their separate ways, hopefully less destructive wise and life-threatening to each other. But yeah, so if you do have Black Moon Lilith in the 7th house, and this can also attribute to the 2nd house as well, there is a chance that your specific behavior or things that Black Moon Lilith will be influencing you will be the direct catalyst as to why you have to, separate, or, why there might be some sort of, life-threatening or even just emotionally traumatizing kind of end or conflict with your relationships. So marriage specifically. And yeah, you could also just be conflicting, destructive, or vindictive, and impulsive towards other people in general. Which usually that does have repercussions on the self as well. Either because of the law, because Saturn in Libra is actually the exaltation, meaning that Saturn is associated with the 7th house of Libra. So it could be either legal things, which, again, Sagittarius is associated with law on some levels, or it could be you just destroying relationships permanently and actually wounding yourself in the process by burning bridges. Then the 8th house, I actually stopped writing everything down at that point, so I'm just going to wing it now. The 8th house would have to do with your resources and associations with others. So you could be jeopardizing your investments, your joint resources with other people. You could also squander or destroy inheritance potentials, and you could also be being an escapist of sorts with your health or some sort of diseases that you have, or you could also be a lack of accountability with like some adultery sort of things, because again, Sagittarius is known for the grass is green on the other side sort of thing, and the Sagittarius archetype stereotypically is not necessarily always known for them being super committed. A lot of the fire signs, besides Leo, that's kind of the exception, tend to like to taste everything and conquer things, or be able to have their cake and eat it too. And Sagittarius, being a sign that's actually associated with gluttony, doesn't stray away from that kind of stigma. Then the 9th house, obviously that's Sagittarius' house, right? So I kind of emphasized on how it can warp somebody's opinions, ideations. It could make people feel like they're justifying destructive or negative kind of, engaging with people, or starting conflicts, or even justifying with like your superego of acting out on psychopathic kind of ideations and behavior. It also would have to do with escapism to other foreign areas or foreign countries. Somebody might just disappear off the face of the earth, or the map, more or less. And depending on other things going on in their chart, or depending on what time of the year, that could actually result in their death as well, or they could never be found. Then we go into the 10th house. So if you ever have Lilith in the 10th house in any way, shape, or form, she usually will have some sort of negative, she'll cast a shadow on your reputation, as she will tarnish your profession, or any of the potential benefic, which are, very, it's a very short list of benefic things associated with Saturn and Capricorn. So your life's work, your purpose, your reputation, your authoritative influence, that sort of thing. So with Sagittarius here specifically, this would demonstrate somebody who might abuse their authority, be destructive, or vindictive, again, abusing their authority with their influences, or they might also be acting out impulsively or having lack of accountability with whatever their profession is. So again, Lilith being associated with the 10th house ever, usually, no matter what the sign it is, it's going to be somebody in a certain profession or that's trusted with a certain kind of authority, abusing said authority, or using it to the means of selfish gains that would be destructive or traumatic for other people. Then we look at Lilith in the 11th house. So Lilith in the 11th house, again, would associate with the actions of said person would end up spiraling out of their control. Or this might be kind of a karmatic repercussion thing, because the 11th house is associated with not only Uranus, but in ancient astrology, Saturn represented Aquarius as well as Capricorn. So Aquarius is associated with the 11th house. So Aquarius in particular is the fixed traumatic kind of fated repercussions of things. So Saturn in Capricorn essentially represents more things that you can work with within, the guise of natural law, and things that you can build on. What Aquarius represents is fated, things that cannot be negotiated or anything like that. So things that might have led up to like behavior patterns, cycles, or just like a domino effect or the slippery slope of events that have been transpiring in a said person's life. Lilith going into the 11th house in Sagittarius could actually equate to not necessarily any current behaviors or acting out kind of events going on. It could be the cataclysmic repercussions of them having sort of a shadow casted of of Sagittarius Lilith kind of emulating throughout their chart. So that would be themes and keywords that I've associated with Lilith in Sagittarius being a part of their cycle of behavior throughout their life. Which again is like impulsive, conflicting, exaggerated, destructive, vindictive, escapism, that sort of thing. Then with Black Moon Lilith going into the 12th house, again, that's one of the houses that has to do with mental stability, and this one in particular because it's self-destructive. It's not just destructive, it's self-destructive, and I always emphasize that because of the self-undoing, sabotaging thing. It also, with Black Moon Lilith in the 12th house, this will be one of the mental instability facets that will be even more challenging for people who are inflicted with this to see it, because anything that's in the 12th house is usually unknown or nebulous or in a fog to the person that's influenced by it. So the lack of accountability or escapism is definitely going to be a huge emphasis with it in the 12th house. Being self-destructive or exaggerating any kind of self-undoing, either by impulsiveness or conflicting with realistic and wise judgment, could potentially lead to your self-undoing. So again, that's Black Moon Lilith and Sagittarius in all of the houses. If you're familiar with your birth chart, your natal chart, then you just go and look for the crescent moon that's all solid black that says Black Moon Lilith. See where it's at in your chart. So this will actually give you kind of a breakdown as to how Lilith affects you personally in your natal chart. But if you go and look basically at your chart itself, and you see where Sagittarius is the ruler of the house. So for example, for me, I actually have Black Moon Lilith in my 3rd house in my birth chart in Leo. And in my birth chart, Sagittarius is influencing my 7th house. So I'm actually having Saturn and Sagittarius, Black Moon Lilith and Sagittarius go over my 7th house, which would be influencing others, my association with others, marriage, partnerships, and legal agreements. So, yeah. Which that's just kind of an eye-opener saying that out loud. I mean, I understood that, but sometimes when I call myself out, it's totally different. Yeah, interesting. I already kind of knew some of that, but that's why it's good to go over the associations, because I didn't think about the legality thing. Interesting. Okay. I'm going to go now. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below or tweet me, or if you'd like to have more of an in-depth kind of thing, especially if you happen to have Black Moon Lilith landing in one of your mental houses, the 3rd, the 6th, the 9th, or the 12th, and you kind of want to have a therapeutic session, or at least be aware of what potentially could arise and what you should be aware of, definitely hit me up and email me at rayreinharts@gmail.com, and we can just have, I can either do a report, or I would just suggest, honestly, a consultation would probably be best for you, so we can have some dialogue about some things. But yeah, I'm available just to schedule anything. Just hit me up, let me know. Alright, thanks guys.
Hello, is there someone there who cares for God-forsaken souls and God-forsaken man? Is there someone there?